The politics of 19th century Europe was chaotic. What had changed? It consisted of several empires that spread around the world trying to show each other who the greatest power was. They all built huge armies to prevent war, assuming everyone else would be too scared to fight them. Or so they thought. Everything changed when a gang of Yugoslav nationalists who did not like being part of Austria-Hungary shot the Austro-Hungarian Archduke Francesco Ferdinando while he was in Sarajevo. The Austro-Hungarian Empire quickly declared war on Serbia. Russia came to the rescue, Serbia. So Germany decided to declare war on Russia. Knowing that France would be at war with Germany, Germany quickly decided to attack France and invaded the country via neutral Belgium and Luxembourg. And so Britain stepped in to prevent the Germans from getting close. It was a mixture of loyalties and old rivalries, with two sides making up the Allies and the Central Powers. And so began what became known at the time as the Great War, the war that would end all wars. A new form of warfare emerged when these fully industrialized armies, with engines, machine guns, airplanes, and new chemical gas weapons, fought each other. It was then the beginning of modern warfare. National pride was at its highest, and men were proud to fight for their country. Going out and being a hero was seen as a romantic idea. Boys as young as 12 managed to work their way through the ranks of the army, only to find that dying for his country wasn't so sweet and honorable. Germany invaded Paris, but was stopped by the French, and both sides dug trenches and into the so-called Western Front. On the Eastern Front, the Russians invaded Austria-Hungary, but are stopped by the Germans in East Prussia. The Ottoman Empire joined on the side of the Central Powers. In 1914, more and more nations around the world joined the fight. As the war spread across Europe, trench warfare was pretty terrible. Each army would dig a long network of trenches in the ground and reinforce the front with barbed wire and sandbags. It has been a long stalemate without either side having the courage to move forward. On the other hand, machine guns were a new and very effective weapon. When the time came, the army would climb over the top and cross no man's land to capture the enemy trench, scanning more land and taking another step towards their goal. At least, that was the plan. Morale was high. At least when the first Christmas came, both troops came out of the trenches to celebrate Christmas together and talk, share stories, and play football. When Christmas was over, they would return to the trenches to become enemies again. The conditions in the trenches were terrible. Soldiers in France and Belgium found their feet rotting from constant humidity. The Australian, New Zealand, and Ottoman soldiers fighting in Gallipoli, on the other hand, had sweltering trenches where rain and cold were replaced by dehydration and overheating. Disease was everywhere in the trenches. 1916 saw renewed pressure on the Western Front from both sides. Thousands of French died in Verdun when the Germans released their chlorine gas. The infamous Battle of the Somme was a long and grueling battle that lasted from July to November. On the first day alone, devastating attacks wounded or killed more than 80,000 mostly British men. Fundamental errors and contradictions in high command led to confusion and unclear plans. In places, the soldiers were not organized in time to attack. By the time they left, the artillery had ceased firing at the Germans, leaving them free to fire at their attackers. Aircraft and artillery should have removed the German barbed wire, but the belt joint was ineffective against the wire. When the order to exaggerate came, thousands of men ran to their deaths to be grabbed by barbed wire and rounded up one by German machine guns. This battle saw the first use of tanks by the British. Eventually, France and Britain pushed against Germany and gained a lot of ground. By Christmas 1916, no one wanted to cheer up their faceless enemy. In 1916, also before the Somme, Irish Republicans staged a rebellion in Dublin, hoping to trap Britain as they were distracted by war. It was crushed by Britain. But after the rebel leaders were executed, Irish support for Britain and the war waned, at least in Southern Ireland. Most of the Irish troops then came from the Protestant north. At sea, Britain exploited many areas of international waters to stop the movement of German ships. Germany was pinned down after many sea battles. Britain tried to at least maintain control of the seas above water. Germany attacked. Submarines added new dimension to naval warfare. They might attack without warning. They sank many ships, including the ship Lusitania. And because it broke many rules of war, it ultimately prompted the United States to enter the war. 2 years later, the British face T.E. Lawrence, also known as Lawrence of Arabia, helped organize the Arab revolt against the Ottoman Empire in 1917. The Russians had a series of revolutions. In the February Revolution, Tsars was not lost, but Russia remained at war. In the October Revolution, the Bolsheviks seized power and empowered the people and sowed the seeds for communism in Russia. The Russians concluded a treaty with Germany and withdrew from the war, which caused an initial difficulty for the enemies of the Central Powers. However, the Allies were refreshed by reinforcements from the United States of America, which eventually decided to go to war. In 1917, after Germany tried to convince Mexico to attack them, Germany made a fierce and effective push before the Allies could take advantage. The Allies advanced from Italy, the Balkans, and the Middle East, excluding Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, and the Ottoman Empire from the war. As the Allies advanced on the Western Front, Germany demanded an armistice to end the fighting, the Allied victory, and an end to the war. The fighting ended at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918. It took 6 months to negotiate the terms, and it was finally decided that the Central Powers would pay for the damages caused during the war. It wasn't until 2010 that Germany fully repaid its debt. The map of Europe has been redrawn. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Leave a like if you want to see more of these videos. It really helps the channel, but for now, I hope to see you again soon.